floor mic to you. And a reminder, the baseball press box is open for you to work when you're done here. All right, Coach.
Yep. Appreciate y'all being here today. Apologize for my voice. We're on day 6 of camp here, so getting warmed up and, really excited about the direction we're going, excited about our whole defensive staff and the players we get to work with, and with that, open it up for questions. Yeah.
How does a guy like Javon Bullard come along since since he's arrived at Georgia for the last couple of years?
Javon's an extremely hard worker. I think, we ask all of our guys to compete at a certain level every day and strain, and Javon does a great job of that. He's a guy that was part of that COVID class, so, you learn a lot about those guys when they get here, and, he's a competitor and brings the type of, energy that we want all of our guys to have.
Yeah, Coach, I guess the position that you might work most closely with is the inside linebackers. So, one, how do you replace all those guys you lost from last year? And what do you see from these guys like Tresman and Ryan and Smile Monda and all those guys?
Yeah, I think you never ask somebody to replace somebody else, right? You ask them to be the best version of themselves. So that's what camp's about, is going out there and every day seeking excellence and challenging yourself to be the best version of yourself. And so in that room, I think we're doing that every day. And, I'm thankful that, we're healthy and guys are pushing and they're pushing each other. And I think the one thing that the standard that was set from those guys and the guys before them is that, everybody's competing together. And, it's about the team and about each other. And these guys embrace that as well. And so I'm excited to see where we go.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what do you think the best version of Jalen Carter looks like, and how do you help him get the most out of that?
Yeah, I think the best version of anyone, right, is somebody who plays. When you play defensive football, you have to, play at a certain level in terms of your effort, right, and toughness, your mentality, your competitive edge, right. So the best version for him, anyone else in the front, anyone else in the defense, will be those traits: playing as hard as you possibly can with the toughness required. And competing, right? You got to win your battles, right? And that's what we'll expect of all our guys, and especially him.
Glenn, you've obviously been with Kirby for a little bit. How much does this defense change year to year based on who's the guy in charge of the room, in charge of the defense, calling the plays, or how much does it just not change because it's Kirby Smart and makes it a coaching tree, et cetera?
Has been a couple. Is it a couple?
Couple years.
A couple years.
6
but
years. Like forever.
Yeah, it's been a minute, I guess. I was trying to figure out how many more years it would be to get where, you've had that saying about your wife where you go and say, hey, I've had more years in my life with my wife than I have without her. And, I was trying to figure out the other day where I have to get to that point. But I think, when you are coaching defense, you have to evolve with the times, right? Every year what offenses are going to do to attack you and their trends offensively are going to change. So no matter where this defense has existed, no matter who's been in charge of it, no matter what the coaches on staff have been or the players, the goal has been to create a defense that can create problems for offenses, answer the challenges they present, right? So every year that'll look a little bit different. Our top calls every year are a little bit different, right? The way we use our personnel is a little bit different. You figure out who your best players are, what you need to do successfully, and you do that as a staff cooperatively to give yourself the best chance on game day. And, when you do that, you get a good product.
I was wondering if you could speak on linebackers Ryan Davis and Tresman Marshall. I feel like their careers have been a bit hindered by depth and injury up until this point, and they've waited their turn now. So I was wondering how you see them coming to form.
Yeah. One, I'm really excited that those guys have been guys that have battled it out throughout their career, right? They've had some hardships, right? It's part of the game. And they've remained positive. They remain focused and determined. And so, to see them out there competing is awesome for me as a coach because you respect what they've done. And, if they continue to do that, I'm hopeful for them, right? So.
Coach, when you lose a number of guys and have a number of guys drafted, how do you go about kind of creating cohesion cohesion with a new group and just a new group of guys getting used to each other?
Right. So, every day, we go out to practice and we want to challenge guys to get used to playing with other people, right? So it might be you go out there and, hey, today this guy's going to rotate and play with this other player at linebacker or at safety or at defensive front. I think you're preparing yourself for the whole room to be cohesive. You have 48 guys here when you count scholarship and walk-on defense, right? And they're all out there, and they'll all get to play with each other. To be good on defense, you have to have a real team bond and connection and unity. And so that can't be that I'm comfortable with one guy, right? Because then you're not ready when the next man steps up. So throughout camp, we're trying to all grow, but we also are pairing different people with each other and making people get really comfortable being uncomfortable so that we're not reliant on just one person, we're relying on the whole unit. And I think that's how you do it.
Glenn, how does year 7 at Georgia feel different as co-coordinator with Will, and how is that kind of evolving as you guys, how do you separate what he's doing, what you're doing, what's kind of the workload for that?
When you're here, whether it's year 1 or year 7, a lot of the stuff on a day-to-day basis, you really do cooperatively, right? That's why it's a staff. Obviously, there are roles within the staff, but when you set out to have a staff, whether it's as a full coaching staff, defensive staff, support staff, you want people to complement each other. You want people to be able to, you can't have one person do everything. You got to be able to share responsibility. And so, titles and people and things of that nature, they change, but the thing that remains the same is that when we go in that room, whether it's as a full staff or a defensive staff, we're working to get on the same page and figure out what's best for our team. And then obviously when you get to the time where certain responsibilities have to be separate, you do that. But the majority of what we do is cooperatively on a day-to-day basis, no matter what the roles are.
Yeah, Coach, it's good team talk, but is there any individuals that you would tell us about? I know it's a team and everybody's needed, but are there any certain players that you could share some info on or maybe comment on what Coach Muschamp brought to his part of the team effort?
Yeah, I think, I understand obviously the question there, right? But we had 19 players on defense play over 200 snaps last year, right? So, I do think that the team talk on defense is extremely important. And it's extremely important on the whole team. You're looking for as many people that can play winning football as possible, right? The individuals that stand out a lot of times, like they're going to be guys that you can identify, that you've already identified potentially. But, the team talk's extremely important this time of year just because our only way to play to the standard on defense here is to get that and to get the team and to get everybody playing together at a high level because, as I checked, there's 11 guys on defense at once, right? And everybody has to fit their gap properly in the run game. You run a pressure. Everybody has to be in the right area. You sit there in coverage. Certain guys have the flats, certain guys are responsible deep. And so at the end of the day, the only way to actually be good on defense as a unit is to be a team, right? You'll see great defensive players places sometimes that maybe you're saying, hey, how did they have that guy? And they weren't overly successful on defense. And our guys, no matter who it's been since we've been here, have taken pride in that aspect. And, we do as well as the staff. In terms of Will, since he's been here, last year and obviously moving into this year, obviously he brings a wealth of experience. He's a great staff guy. We really enjoy working together, not just him, but our whole defensive staff, whole staff in general, as much as we ever have. And so I think he brings a sense of camaraderie, professionalism, experience. He's a great sounding board for ideas. And for as much success he's had in his career, he's extremely humble at the same time, which I think humility shows a lot about who a person is.
Glenn, back in the spring, we heard a lot about Jamal Johnson. Just what have you seen from him during the summer and then this early part of fall camp?
Yeah, I think he's challenged himself to be the best version of himself, right? He knows in the summer you attack strength and conditioning to be able to say, hey, I might have an increased role this year, right? So, hey, what do I have to do in terms of my strength and conditioning to be able to play whatever role is asked of me, from the team? he's a guy who loves football, practices really hard. He's instinctive physical player, and but need to continue to see him grow, right? Everybody needs to continue. We're on day 6 of practice, right? They got to all continue to grow. But I've seen him try to step up and answer the challenge. Whether that's him or the questions earlier were about Tresman, Marshall and Ryan Davis. The question was asked about Smile Munn and all those guys. Those guys, in addition to Xavier Sorey, Jalen Walker, E.J. Lightsey, the whole room understand what's expected in terms of running the defense. And there's a level of pressure that applies to you, and so they're all trying to answer it. But he's done a great job so far, and he just has to continue to grow.
Quarterback question, Coach. Can you tell us a little bit about the candidates that might play opposite Keely Ringo, maybe who the candidates are, one of their strengths, and if you touch on Singletary and Humphreys, if you would.
Yeah, I'll touch on the question you asked about Slim and Julio. I think when you look at Singletary, he's long, he's competitive, he loves football, he has good ball skills. Julio is extremely fast, right, and has great size. And another guy that has he's willing in terms of his toughness out there, which is required at that position. So asking about them, they're both working to become the players they need to at corner, right? For them, they got here this summer and they're putting in the work and they're really making good progress. And now it's we're on day 6. How can you continue to build and stack days as camp gets harder? The rest of the room, you're looking at Dalen Everett was here with us for the spring, Kamari Lassiter and Nylan Green. All those guys are working out there, and we dual train a lot of guys. So, guys if you go back to the very beginning, Chris Smith started out at corner, and ended up becoming a safety, right? So we try to dual train everybody. So there'll be other guys that go out there and play as well. And so, that competition is well underway and gets changed up every day, and we try to mix and match them, right? We don't just have one guy running in any group. So they get to go against different wideouts every day and challenge. And so until we get to a scrimmage and really see, who shows up when it's live and the coaches are off the field and it's live tackle, we'll know more about the competition then.
Hey, Coach, whether it's true or not, one of the headlines all offseason has been this defense is going to be worse. Is that something, whether it's true or not, is that something that you think this current group uses as any sort of motivation, or is it just a complete look forward to next season?
I think that when you look at what we do here defensively, all these kids took pride in being a defensive football player when they came here, right? They're part of it. You go back to Georgia since Irk Russell has been known for playing great defense, right? So guys who come here believe in themselves that they can go be as good as they want to be defensively, and collectively that we can do that. So I don't think anybody's worried about what other people think about what we're going to be. I don't think they're using it for motivation. I think they go out there every day and are just trying to be the absolute best defense we possibly can. And all that external stuff, I don't see a group that needs external motivation. I think they're very intrinsically motivated, and I think that they're focused and they're working the right way right now.
Yeah, Glenn, when you've got guys at inside linebacker that are as athletic as Smile and Xavier and Jalen Walker even, what type of flexibility does that add to the defense in terms of playing those guys maybe at star or down on the edge? What does that add, and how beneficial is that for y'all with the defensive staff?
Well, I think if you watch us play in nickel, if you look at what our star is really a slot corner, which is really how most of the National Football League plays their nickels. So I think we're asking them to be inside linebackers, right? Which in today's day and age of football isn't really a box linebacker anymore. It's an off-ball linebacker. So the whole room knows that in order to be successful, you have to be able to blitz, you have to be able to cover, you have to be able to play in space, right? All those factors, traits that in the old school days of 4-3 football, you would say, oh, that's what an outside linebacker does, right? That's basically what you're asking from the whole room. So in order for us to be successful defensively, they got to be, have a versatile skill set. You mentioned those guys that obviously have length and are athletic and played kind of on the edge in high school. But that's what the challenge, we're asking the whole room to have that. And the more guys that can do those things, that can be good blitzers, can be good in coverage, can play in space, we can do a lot. We have a lot of flexibility, right, with what we can do defensively. And when we get through the two scrimmages and we kind of identify who are our best players, then you'll see our rotation and the way we use guys in packages kind of take place as we get ready for games, right? This time right now in camp, it's a lot of base packages. And then when we figure out, hey, who's our best players and what roles in all rooms, right, in all rooms, then we'll decide, hey, how are we using these guys on third down? How are we using them on first and second down? And you saw every year our packages are a little bit different, you know. And so, but I do think fundamentally the nickel is is a slot corner when you look at the way defensive football is played most of the time nowadays.
Hey, Glenn, just talk about the importance, if you don't mind, about getting Nolan Smith back, not just what he does for the outside back position, but I think everybody's pretty aware of what he does as far as being kind of that voice of the defense, so to speak, but also just the outside linebackers as a whole. A lot of youth, some of those experienced guys you got there.
Yeah, Nolan is one of those guys that when you say, hey, if you're going to talk about it, be about it. And he's known for being vocal because he is, but he holds himself to an extremely high standard in terms of how he works. I think that you can see that in that room, that's something that they take pride in. And, you know, defensively, he wants to challenge everybody to do the same thing. Right? He's been a great leader for us. He works really hard every day. He has great toughness. And right now, he's looking to be the best version of himself and improve in areas. You know, he wants to be a better pass rusher, right? He's working extremely hard at that, and he's really stepped out even more in terms of what he's doing as a leader. And that room, you know, I see a lot of guys matching that. Robert Beal has a lot of the same traits in terms of maybe not being as vocal, but in terms of how he carries himself in practice. You know, you look at a guy like Chaz Chambliss, who's extremely tough and a hard worker. MJ Sherman matches that. You can go guy by guy. And then when you walk in and you have freshmen, you know, you have Marvin Jones, Dare Smith, C.J. Madden, and they see a room that's extremely hardworking and tough, not just from one guy, but from all the guys ahead of them, then they know what the expectation is. And so, you know, when you see them out there, that kind of becomes the reputation of the room.
Coach, obviously there's big shoes to fill on the edge at defensive end. What have you seen from Tyrion Ingram Dawkins as he enters his second season, and that makes you confident that he can be one of those guys?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, you know, when he went into the spring, he really attacked his body and his ability to be a guy that, you know, can play on the edge. And, you know, he continued. That's a battle that you take as a big guy every single day, all throughout the summer into fall camp. You know, the biggest thing is when you're leaner and you can be quicker and more explosive, it's beneficial, right? That's at every position. And so he's really done that, and we want that in position, whether it's him or Tramel Walthour or Michael Williams, those guys, when they're out there, you want them to be guys that are, you know, able to be quick, athletic, lean, guys that can, you know, make plays in terms of pursuit, but also be stout enough to go inside. So I think that his growth, especially in the spring when he leaned himself up, it helped him.
Let's take two more questions.
Glenn, on paper, there's still a lot of talent from this defense, just a lot of younger talent. How do you kind of weigh that versus the kind of experience you've got? You do have back like 6-year seniors, guys who have played a little bit more when you decide who you want to roll out there to start the season.
You know, I think the saying that's lived here for a long time now has been, if you're good enough, you're old enough, right? So camp is about figuring out who our best players are, right? And that doesn't have, you know, a birth date on it. So we need to figure out who our best players are. You challenge them early, right? You challenge guys early across the board, whether they're old or young, to see, hey, what can they learn? What can they handle? What do we need to work on them with? What do they do best? And then as you go in and we go through our scrimmage one, kind of lessens a little bit, and now you're fine-tuning it and you're saying, hey, okay, who performed and who did it? And as you see guys perform, you know, ultimately it's a coach's job to coach, right? We're teachers. So when you look at it, and if you identify a guy who can help you in terms of talent, no matter how old he is, then let's figure out how we can coach that guy to help us and create a role for him, whether that's as a guy who plays a lot or in a certain package, right? So, you know, I think once you identify who those guys are, and then we make sure that we attack it to get them up to that line that we need to be at in terms of ability to be on the field and help us.
When we talked to
Keely Ringo in the spring, he talked a lot about working on his confidence in order to help him. As a coach, how do you go about instilling confidence in him that way he can go out there and play with it?
Right. I think it's important for you to believe in your players, right? Like, you know personally who believes in you. And so I think showing belief in your players, right, no matter their age, no matter their experience, is extremely important as a coach, because if you don't believe in them, why would they believe in themselves? So I think starting with that, if you want to instill confidence in any player, right, you got to build them up. You got to challenge them when they're wrong. But sometimes the best thing to do after a guy has a mistake is love on them, right? You can correct it in a meeting room. So in terms of building any player's confidence, young or old, man, it starts with us. Believe in them, coach them, lead them, right? Challenge them when they need it. But they need to know the coaches believe in them and their teammates believe in them. And that goes back to the whole question of, hey, team is really important, right? The more that we're a team, the more that we're united, guys will believe in themselves.
We're going to take one more quick one right here.
I ain't gonna put you on the spot real quick. I know since you've been here at Georgia, regular, former coach mate, so to speak, have gone on to become head coaches in different places. I just wondered for you personally, and everybody's got their own goals. Is that something you one day would like to do?
The thing I tried to do when I was a GA, right, is always think about how I can be the best GA and whatever that was. And then it ended up being something where I became, a slightly higher role, still support staff. And then I just tried to do that job the best I could. And so I've done that since I've been here. And I really try not to be like too forward thinking. There's times and places for that. But ultimately, people don't, that quote that Coach Smart had last year before training camp about, success coming to those who are too busy to be looking for it. It's a very real quote. It's not coach speak, it's a real thing. So I try to live that, preach to your players, be where your feet are, and that's what it's all about.